Hey, we're Sam and Chris from Funeral Lakes, and we're going to talk a little bit about our new EP, Golden Season.
Yeah, so it's a follow up from our debut album that came out last December. Um, we recorded this one over 2 days in a studio with some friends, whereas the last one we recorded all at home. So production wise, I think there's a pretty big difference between the two, but thematically, it's really a continuation of a lot of the things we talked about.
Yeah, I think all of our songs are typically uh, politically and emotionally charged, but um, with these songs, we wanted them to be a little bit more polished and louder, and we were able to achieve that in the studio.
Yeah, and we're always writing and sort of demoing in our own space, so we always have a nice catalog to pick from. And I think when we were sifting through and deciding what we wanted to record in the studio, these ones they seem to fit together in terms of creating an arc and having more energy because when you can record off the floor and have that live sound, it's special. And with the first album, it's just a lot of overdubbing and repetition, so you kind of have a different energy there.
Yeah, and it was basically 2 full days that we spent in the studio with a couple of our friends. Did you already say who helped us with this?
Oh yeah, we had Charlie Van on drums and Colin Spratt engineered, and then he's mixed and mastered, and they both helped us out with the first album as well. So
Yeah.
it was comfortable going into that space with some friends, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was pretty there was kind of a sense of urgency just to get everything done in a short period of time, but we think that it kind of translated well into the songs because lyrically there's also that kind of same sense of urgency and frantic energy. Why
Right.
don't we do a track by track, starting with Eternal Return?
Okay, so thematically, this song it's about petro-nationalism and boom and bust cycles, and that's sort of been something that's always been consistent with the identity of Canadian politics. But this past year has really kind of shown itself in a lot more violent ways. It's uh, it's something that we wanted to address in a song and kind of pick apart, but something we try to do is kind of match that personal and political, and I don't know, not preach at people, but kind of explain things and rationalize and get them to a point where when we do start yelling or shouting, it's when we're all on the same page and we can all kind of feel justified in those feelings.
Yeah, so on that note, I guess I'll say like the bulk of the song is sort of that sort of lead up of kind of like laying out a line of rationale and talking about these issues, and then it sort of explodes at the end with a very loud outro, which was really fun to make.
Yeah, we kind of all stood around a mic and shouted, and we actually used a megaphone for some of the yelling, which is fun. Um, but yeah, the song it picks up over time and it really mashes like a lot of genres. It's kind of a folk rock
Mm-hmm.
song at its core, but when it takes off at the end, it's a little more proto punk, and chorus has that Johnny Marr sort of jangle to it, which is fun. Production wise, it started off just the bed truck with bass and drums, and built it up from there. We used this old acoustic guitar that they had lying around, which
Mm-hmm.
it really cuts through the mix, which is uh, pretty nice.
There was also the organ in the studio we used, and there was actually three of us on it pressing different buttons on the organ at one time. So there's kind of these sort of like funny quirks with that song that are kind of they make it special for us, and
Yeah, I think that song it has existed for so long, and in so many different ways that it feels nice to finally put it out, and I
it's
think
sort of always evolving, and maybe it'll exist in different ways in the future, right? But I think that's kind of at the heart of the song.
yeah, absolutely. I think we only played it twice live, before live music kind of came to a halt. But I don't know, it was fun to play live and cathartic to shout.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Earth Falls, kind of similar thematically to Eternal Return and many of our songs, which are around just environmental destruction and the feelings that are wrapped up in that. So the anxiety, also coming to terms with the realities of the world that we're now living in, and the uncertainty of what's to come.
Yeah, so by the time we get to the end of the song, it's that idea of coming to terms with the realities we're living in, and that's when we introduce this theme and idea of the golden season sort of being a period of transition and realization. I guess it's kind of like this standing on a soapbox or preaching and sort of yelling out these realities, and the layer buried underneath that, it's another group vocal where we're trying to kind of mimic these like Gregorian chants to create this really ominous kind of backdrop. And this song really gets pretty frantic towards the end, and I think we were pretty happy with how that came out, because that's what we were trying to really communicate.
Yeah, and with the chants piece, we had Colin and Charlie join on that too, so that was something that was pretty cool to be able to do this time around that we weren't really able to do on the first album, to get that kind of fullness with the vocals.
Yeah, and it started off, I guess it was just a bed track of drum and bass, and then we built it up from there. A few of the overdubs ended up just happening back at home just because of the time constraints, but yeah, it was nice to realize that as a group and to bring that energy.
And the last song is called Power Trip, and this one is probably the most sonically divergent from the rest of our songs. It's a little bit more punk, I guess, post-punk. It's thematically similar in that it's talking about toxic masculinity, and it's talking about, like it can be very macro about these sort of powerful figures, or it can be very micro and just about, just everyday shows of toxic masculinity and unchecked authority.
So this one happened like three of us playing live off the floor, so it kind of has this really nice momentum to it. I think someone described the guitar as like scuzzy.
Yeah, that's definitely what we wanted to achieve, so I'm pretty happy with that description.
Yeah, I mean, like, tone-wise.
We always want the sound of the song to match the lyrics, and so I think that's definitely true with this song. It's very aggressive and in your face, and I mean, so are the vocals. Like, I was screaming at the top of my lungs, so there was definitely a lot of anger and frustration.
Yeah, I think the guitar, it's like, that really garagey sound that's just kind of creating the layer, but then the bass is kind of, doing its own song, and sort of a nice rhythm to it, which really picks things up.
And originally we had the melody on the synth, and then we decided to go with the guitar instead, just because it just sort of matched the energy of the song a little bit better. And
yeah, I guess the demo was more of like sort of a dance punk song, but
yeah, exactly,
came out different when we brought it to the other guys. Yeah, and then I guess during the breakdown, it was cool. They had this mic that was made from components from like a Soviet era factory. They were like in this copper casing, so that's kind of like that newscast sound that we got, which was pretty fun to mess around with.
On the outro.
Yeah, so I guess that's all the songs. It's a short and sweet 3-song EP, but I think we tried to fit a lot into it, thematically and lyrically. And
yeah, I think it's a reflection of how we're feeling. It's a transition. It's definitely different in many ways from our first album. I would say there's a lot more of that anger and just kind of feeling fed up with the way things are going.
Yeah, and we're working on another EP and some singles right now, and I think they're gonna sound different, but that's something that we always enjoy. Sort of experimenting with different genres, and ultimately we're always just trying to create an atmosphere and sort of we're trying to evoke emotion and get the listener on our page. So we'll hopefully continue to do that.